Welcome everyone to the Moting. I'm kidding. I already finished this book. This was a good book. 3.7. It might even be a 4 out of 5 on a reread. I wouldn't mind rereading this. There's some good stuff in here. Really good stuff in here. Like, I keep it out because I miss it. I just like to look at it. Fionk. I miss my Fionk. It's alright. Can't believe I read that. Nice story. Good stuff in here. Jerry Purnell, Larry Niven. I wonder what other story. I try to read The Burning City in there. It's alright. I don't care about it, to be honest. It feels like Handmaid's Tale. Well, not really. A little bit. I didn't want to say that out loud before I confirmed it, and I haven't confirmed it. There's like 2 short chapters in here. Alright then. Well, I'll read that some other time. Right now, I just want to see if this book is any good. I'm trying to see what's the hype behind Stephen King, you know? And I read Carrie, and it's not my top 5 favorite books. You know? It just felt like I was reading a good book, I guess. Yeah, I mean, Carrie was good. So, my top 5 is, what was it? I said it was The Odyssey. I really like The Odyssey. I read that shit 3-4 times. I like The Odyssey, then The Lightning Thief, maybe The Sorcerer's Stone. Maybe. Frankenstein, and no. The Odyssey, The Lightning Thief, maybe Dracula, The Sorcerer's Stone. The Lightning Thief is just for nostalgic purposes, and I haven't read a lot. And number 5 would have to be, I don't know. I like The Hobbit, but it wasn't like a top 5. But I haven't read a lot, so was The Hobbit better than The Moat in God's Eye? Is The Moat in God's Eye a better book than The Hobbit? That's a hard comparison. I don't know. That's hard to decide. And I feel like I want to say The Hobbit, but I feel like it's for nostalgia purposes. But The Moat in God's Eye was fun. That first contact story. It's weird. I enjoyed it. I don't know. What would be number 5? Of Mice and Men. Of Mice and Men is so good. Yeah. Alright. I lost my page count, so I remember saying 77 a lot. Was that the page I was in? Yeah. He unlocked the gate and looked at his gloves, which was smeared with blood. Whoa. I don't remember that. Remember? So, I'm not gonna lie. So, we're in page 76, and I've only read for one night. Today is the second day of reading Salem's Lot. Today is day number 2, and I'm already in page 76. I might be farther. I just don't know. I don't remember what page I was in. But, you know, full spoilers ahead. There's a little. I'm still on chapter 3, I think, and there's a lady in here with a baby, and Sandy, and she like punched her baby. That was sad. And I was just like, what the heck? It wasn't fun to read. You know what I'm saying? It was very, I kind of actually don't want to read it anymore. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of don't even want to read it. It turned me off. Like, it wasn't done with taste, I think. And it was in your face, and ugh, that was disgusting. But I just didn't like it. I didn't like that scene. But we're gonna continue it because I'm a completionist. Not really. I won't play a video game and find all the treasures. I would play a video game just to beat the storyline, and that's it. Maybe maybe the side missions, but not to look for all the damn fucking gummy ships. I don't want every keyblade. I don't care about that stuff. I just want to beat the game, the side missions. That's it, and that's good enough. Am I hooked in Salem's Lot? No. I like it. I mean, it's written good. Whatever. I say I like it. I think the intro of Carrie might be better. The setting. There you go. The intro of Carrie I like more. Hi, Idion. It's nice to see you. Welcome to the live. We're reading Salem's Lot. We are in page 76, I think. But I'm trying to figure that out. And yeah, chapter 3. Full spoilers ahead. So I like the intro of Carrie better, but to be honest, you know, you could relate to that. I can't relate to a ghost town, but what I was saying is I like the setting of Salem's Lot better than fucking whatever, high school. So we're gonna go find where I was. Oh, Weasel. He rolled out of bed. I remember reading that. I don't know if I finished this chapter. Eva Miller, 7 years later. Fell out of it by the sound of it. And he began. Oh, he's an old guy, yeah. Alright, I'm actually on page 82. So I got through 82 pages in one night. I think I've read 100 pages. I don't know if I've ever read 100 pages in a day. Alright, let's go. 10 a.m. It was recess time at Stanley Street Elementary School, which was the lot's newest and proudest school building. It was a low, glass-lined, 4-classroom building that the school district was still paying for, as new and bright and modern as the Brock Street Elementary School was old and dark. Richie Bodden, who was the old school bully and proud of it, stepped out onto the playground grandly, eyes searching for that smart-ass new kid who knew all the answers in math. No new kid came waltzing into his school without knowing who was boss, especially some four-eyes queer boys, teacher's pet like this one. Richie was 11 years old and weighed 140 pounds. All his life, his mother had been calling on people to see what a huge young man her son was, and so he knew he was big. Sometimes he fancied that he could feel the ground tremble under his feet when he walked, and when he grew up, he was going to smell camels, just like his old man. The 4th and 5th graders were terrified of him, and the smaller kids regarded him as a schoolyard to them, as totem. They regarded him as a. So I need to. No, I'm starting to work on time. Sorry, I got an important message. And the smaller kids regarded him as a schoolyard totem. When he moved onto the 7th grade at Brock Street School, their pantheon would be empty of its devil. All this pleased him immensely. And there was the Petrie kid, waiting to be chosen up for the recess touch football game. "Hey!" Richie yelled. Everyone looked around except Petrie. Every eye had a glassy sheen on it, and every pair of eyes showed relief when they saw that Richie's rested elsewhere. "Hey, you! 4 Eyes!" Mark Petrie turned and looked at Richie. His steel-rimmed glasses flashed in the morning sun. He was as tall as Richie, which meant he towered over most of his classmates. But he was slender and his face looked defenseless and bookish. "Are you speaking to me? Are you speaking to me?" Richie mimicked, his voice a high falsetto. "You sound like a queer 4 Eyes. You know that?" "No, I didn't know that," Mark Petrie said. Fuck. Richie took a step forward. "I bet you suck. You know that, 4 Eyes? I bet you suck the old hairy root." "Really?" His polite tone was infuriating. "Yeah, I heard you really suck it. Not just Thursdays for you. You can't wait. Every day for you." Kids began to drift over to watch Richie stomp the new boy. Miss Holcomb was playground monitor this week. Was out front watching the little kids on the swings and seesaws. "What's your racket?" Mark Petrie asked. He was looking at Richie as if he had discovered an interesting new beetle. "What's your racket?" Richie mimicked falsetto. "I ain't got no racket. I just heard you were a big fat queer, that's all." "Is that right?" Mark asked, still polite. "I heard that you were a big clumsy stupid turd, that's what I heard." Utter silence. Ooh. The other boys gaped, but it was an interesting gape. None of them had ever seen a fellow sign his own death warrant before. Richie was caught entirely by the surprise and gaped with the rest. Mark took off his glasses and handed them to the boy next to him. "Hold these, would you?" The boy took them and goggled at Mark silently. Richie charged. It was a slow, lumbering charge, with not a bit of grace or finesse in it. The ground trembled under his feet. He was filled with confidence and the clear, joyous urge to stomp and break. Ah! He swung his haymaker right, which could catch old 4 Eyes queer boy right in the mouth and send his teeth flying like piano keys. "Get ready for the dentist, queer boy. Here I come." Mark Petrie ducked and sidestepped at the same instant. The haymaker went over his head. Richie was pulled halfway around by the force of his own blow, and Mark had only to stick out a foot. Richie bowed and thumped to the ground. He grunted. The crowd of watching children went, "Ah!" Mark knew perfectly well that if the big clumsy boy on the ground regained the advantage, he would be beaten up badly. Mark was agile, but agility could not stand up for long in a schoolyard brawl. In a street situation, this would have been the time to run, to outdistance his slower pursuer, then turn and thumb his nose. But this wasn't the street or the city, and he knew perfectly well that if he didn't whip this guy, this big ugly turd now, the harassment would never stop. These thoughts went through his mind in a fifth of a second. He jumped on Richie Bottom's back. Richie grunted. The crowd went, "Ah!" again. Mark grabbed Richie's arm, careful to get it above the shirt cuff so he couldn't sweat out of his grip, and twisted it behind Richie's back. Richie screamed in pain. "Say, Uncle," Mark told him. Richie's reply would have pleased a 20-year-old Navy man. Mark yanked Richie's arm up to his shoulder blades, and Richie screamed again. He was filled with indignation, fright, and puzzlement. This had never happened to him before. It couldn't be happening now. Surely no 4 Eyes queer boy could be sitting on his back and twisting his arm and making him scream before his subjects. "Say, Uncle," Mark repeated. Richie heaved himself to his knees. Mark squeezed his own knees into Richie's sides like a man riding a horseback and stayed on. They were both covered with dust, but Richie was much the worse for wear. His face was red and straining. His eyes bulged, and there was a scratch on his cheek. He tried to dump Mark over his shoulders, and Mark yanked upward on their arm again. This time Richie didn't scream. He wailed, Say uncle, or so help me God, I'll break it." Richie's shirt had pulled out of his pants. His belly felt hot and scratched. He began to sob and wrench his shoulders from side to side, yet the hateful four-eyed queer boy stayed on. His forearm was ice, his shoulder fire. "Get off me, you son of a whore! You don't fight fair!" An explosion of pain. "Say uncle, no!" He overbalanced on his knees and went face down in the dust. "Don't break his arm! I don't want to read that!" The pain in his arm was paralyzing. He was eating dirt. There was dirt in his eyes. He thrashed his legs helplessly. Oh, fuck. What the fuck? Didn't we just read a teacher? There was just a teacher here. Where did she go? Why is she not doing her job? It says the boy who was looking for someone to punk. That's funny. I swear I read there was a teacher. £140 at 11 years old. I swear I read a teacher scene. Hold on. I want to know why she's not doing anything. No. Alright, let's just move on. The pain in his arm was paralyzing. He was eating dirt. There was dirt in his eyes. He thrashed his legs helplessly. He had forgotten about being huge. He had forgotten about how the ground trembled under his feet when he walked. He had forgotten that he was going to smoke camels just like his old man when he grew up. "Uncle! Uncle! Uncle!" Richie screamed. He felt that he could go on screaming uncle for hours, for days, if it would get his arm back. "Say, I'm a big ugly turd. I'm a big ugly turd." Richie screamed into the dirt. Good enough. Mark Petrie got off him and stepped back warily out of reach as Richie got up. His thighs hurt from squeezing them together. He hoped that all the fight was out of Richie. If not, he was going to get creamed. Richie got up. He looked around. No one met his eyes. They turned away and went back to whatever they had been doing. That stinking glick kid was standing next to the queer boy and looking at him as though he were some kind of god. Richie stood by himself, hardly able to believe how quickly his ruination had come. His face was dusty except where it had been streaked clean with his tears of rage and shame. He considered launching himself at Mark Petrie, yet his shame and fear, new and shining and huge, would not allow it. And shame. He considered launching himself at Mark Petrie, yet his shame and fear, new and shining and huge, would not allow it. Huge would not allow it. All right. All right. His arm ached like a rotten tooth. Son of a whoring dirty finger. If I ever land on you and get you down. But not today. He turned away and walked off, and the ground didn't tremble a bit. He looked at the ground so he wouldn't have to look at anyone in the face. Someone on the girl's side laughed, a high mocking sound that carried with cruel clarity on the morning air. He didn't look up to see who was laughing at him. Oh, the school bully wants revenge. (11:15 a.m.) The Jerusalem's Lot Town dump had been a plain old gravel pit until it struck clay and paid out in 1945. It was at the end of a spur that led off from the Burns Road 2 miles beyond Harmony Hill Cemetery. Dud Rogers could hear the faint putter and cough of Mike Ryerson's lawn mower down the road, but that sound would soon be blotted out by the crackle of flames. Dud had been the dump custodian since 1956, and his reappointment each year at town meeting was routine and by acclamation. He lived at the dump in a neat tarp paper lean-to with a sign reading "Dump Custodian." He lived there on the skew-hung door. He had wangled a space heater out of the skin flint board of selectmen 3 years ago, and had given up his apartment in town for good. He was a hunchback with a curious cocked head that made him look as if God had given him a final petulant wrench before allowing him into the world. His arms were dangled, ape-like, almost to his knees, were amazingly strong. It had been taken, what is that? Las Vegas HR. No reply. What is that? Hold on. I love you. She's so cute. But she doesn't want me to read. Moondust, leave. He was a hunchback with a curious cocked head that made him look as if God had given him a final petulant wrench before allowing him out into the world. His arms, which dangled ape-like almost to his knees, were amazingly strong. It had taken 4 men to load the old hardware store floor safe into their panel truck to bring it out here when the store got its new wall job. The tires of the truck had settled appreciably when they put it in. But Dud Rogers had taken it off himself, cords standing out on his neck, veins bulging on his forehead and forearms, and biceps like blue cables. He had pushed it over the east edge himself. Did Dud like the dump? Oh, wait. Dud liked the dump. He liked running off the kids who came here to bust bottles, and he liked directing traffic to wherever the day's dumping was going on. He liked dump picking, and which was his privilege as custodian. He supposedly sneered at him, walking across the mountains to trash in his hip waders and leather gloves, with his pistol in his holster, sack over his shoulder, and his pocket knife with his hand. Let them sneer. There was copper core wire and sometimes whole motors with their copper wrappings intact. And copper fetched a good price in Portland. There were busted out bureaus and chairs and sofas, things that could be fixed up and sold to the antique dealers on Route 1. Dud rooked the dealers, and the dealers turned around and rooked the summer people. And wasn't it just fine the way the world went around and round? He found a splintered spool bed with a busted frame 2 years back and had sold it to a faggot from Wells for $200. The faggot had gone into ecstasies about the New England authenticity of that bed, never knowing how carefully Dud had sanded off the made in Grand Rapids on the back of the headboard. At the far end of the dump were the junk cars, Buicks and Fords and Chevys, you name it. And my God, the parts people left on their machines when they were through with them. Radiators were best, but a good 4-barrel carb would fetch $7 after it had been soaked in gasoline. Not to mention fan belts, tail lights, distributor caps, windshields, steering wheels, and floor mats. Yes, the dump was fine. The dump was Disneyland and Shangri-La all rolled up into one, but not even the money tucked away in the black box buried in the dirt below his easy chair was the best part. The best part was the fires and the rats. Dud set parts of the dump on fire on Sunday and Wednesday mornings. And on Monday and Friday evenings, evening fires were the prettiest. He loved the dusky Rosetta glow that bloomed out of the green plastic bags of crap and all the newspapers and boxes. But morning fires were better for rats. Now, sitting in his easy chair and watching the fire catch and begin to send its greasy black smoke into the air, sending the gulls aloft, Dud held his .22 target pistol loosely in his hand and waited for the rats to come out. When they came in battalions. They were big, dirty, gray, pink-eyed. Small fleas and ticks jumped on their hides. Their tails dragged after them like thick pink wires. Dud loved to shoot rats. "You buy a powerful slug o' shells, Dud," George Middler down at the hardware store would say in his fruity voice, pushing the boxes of Remington across. "Town pay for him? This was an old joke." Oh wait. Some years back, Dud had put in a purchase order for 2,000 rounds of hollow point .22 cartridges, and Bill Norton had grimly sent him packing. "Now," Dud would say, "you know this is purely a public service, George." There, that big fat one with the gimpy back leg was George Middler. Had something in his mouth that looked like a shredded piece of chicken liver. What? That's gross. Shredded piece of chicken liver? "Here you go, George. Here you are," Dud said and squeezed off. The 22's report was flat and undramatic, but the fat rat tumbled over twice and lay twitching. Hollow points, which was the ticket. Someday he was going to get a large bore, .45 or a .357 Magnum, and see what that did to the little cock knockers. That next one now, that was the slutty little Ruthie Crockett, the one who didn't wear no bra to school and was always elbowing her chums. And sniggering when Dud passed on the street. Bang. Goodbye, Ruthie. The rats scurried madly for the protection of the dump's far side, but they were gone. Dud had gotten 6 of them, a good morning's kill. If he went out there and looked at them, the ticks would be running off the cooling bodies like rats deserting a sinking ship. This struck him as deliciously funny, and he threw back his queerly cocked head and rocked back on his hump and laughed in great long gusts as the fire crept through the trash with its grasping orange fires. Life surely was grand. Noon. The town whistle went off with a great 12-second blast, ushering in lunch hour at all 3 schools and welcoming the afternoon. Lawrence Crockett, the lot second selectman and proprietor of Crockett Southern Maine Insurance and Realty, put away the book he had been reading, Satan's Sex Slaves, and set his watch by the whistle. He went to the door and hung the back at the 1 o'clock sign from the shade pole. His routine was unvarying. He would walk up to the excellent cafe, have 2 cheeseburgers with the works and a cup of coffee, and watch Pauline's legs while he smoked a William Penn. He rattled the doorknob once to make sure the lock had caught and moved off down Jointer Avenue. He paused on the corner and glanced up at the Marston house. There was a car in the driveway. He could just make it out, twinkling and shining. It caused a thread of disquiet somewhere in his chest. He had sold the Marston house and the long defunct... Wait. This is the owner of the Marston house? Ushering in lunch hour at all 3 schools. Oh no, it's just some guy who walked by it. Lawrence Crockett. There was a car in the driveway. He could just make it out, twinkling and shining. It caused oh no, he had sold the Marston house and the long defunct village wash tub in a package deal over a year ago. Oh, he sold it because he works in realty. It had been the strangest deal of his life, and he had made some strange ones in his time. The owner of the car up there was, in all probability, a man named Straker, R.T. Straker. And just this morning he had received something in the mail from this Straker. The fellow in question had driven up to Crockett's office on a shimmering July afternoon just over a year ago. He got out of the car and stood out on the sidewalk for a moment before coming inside. A tall man dressed in a sober 3-piece suit in spite of the day's heat. He was as bald as a cue ball and as sweatless as same. His eyebrows were a straight black slash, and the eye sockets shelved away below them 2 dark holes that may have been carved into the angular surface of his face with drill bits. He carried a slim black briefcase in one hand. Larry was alone in his office when Straker came in. His part-time secretary, a foul-mouthed girl with the most delectable set of jahoobies you ever clapped an eye to, worked for a Gates Falls lawyer on her afternoons. The bald man sat down in the client's chair, put his briefcase in his lap, and stared at Larry Crockett. It was impossible to read the expressions in his eyes, and that bothered Larry. He liked to be able to read a man's wants in his baby blues or browns before the man even opened his mouth. This man had not paused to look at the pictures of local properties that were tacked up on the bulletin board, and not offered to shake hands and introduce himself, had not even said hello. "How can I help you?" Larry asked. "I have been sent to buy a residence and a business establishment in your so fair town," the bald man said. He spoke with the flat, uninflected tonelessness that made Larry think of the recorded announcements you got when you dialed the weather. Hey, wonderful," Larry said. "We have several very nice properties that might..." "There is no need," the bald man said, and held up his hand to stop Larry's words. Larry noted with fascination that his fingers were amazingly long, the middle finger 4 or 5 inches from the base to the tip. What? That's gross. The business establishment is a block beyond the town office building in front of on the park. I don't know, maybe they're attractive. Who knows? Yeah, I can deal with you on that. Used to be a laundromat. One broke a year ago. That'd be a real good location if you... The residence, the bald man overrode him, is the one referred to in town as the Marston house. Larry had been in the business too long to show his thunderstruck feelings on his face. Is that so? Yes. My name is Straker. Richard Throckett Straker. All papers will be in my name. Very good, Larry said. The man meant business. That much seemed clear enough. The asking price of the Marston house is $14,000, although I think my clients could be persuaded to take a little less. On the old washateria, there is no accord. I have been authorized to pay $1. One? Larry tilted his head forward the way a man will when he has failed to hear something correctly. Yes. A 10, please. Straker's long fingers undid the clasps on his briefcase, opened it, and took out a number of papers bound in a blue transparent folder. Larry Crockett looked at him, frowning. Read, please. That will save time. Larry thumbed over the folder's plastic cover and glanced down at the first sheet with the pair of a man humoring a fool. His eyes moved from left to right randomly for a moment, then riveted on something. Straker smiled thinly. He reached inside his suit coat, produced a flat gold cigarette case, and selected a cigarette. He tamped it and then lit it with a wooden match. The harsh aroma of a Turkish blend filled the office and was eddied around by the fan. There had been silence in the office for the next 10 minutes, broken only by the hum of the fan and the muted passage of traffic on the street outside. Straker smoked a cigarette down to a shred, crushed the glowing ash between his fingers, and lit another. Larry looked up. His face pale and shaken. This is a joke. Who put you up to it? John Kelly? I know no John Kelly. I don't joke. Those papers, quick calm deed. Land title search. My God, man. Don't you know that piece of land is worth $1.5 million? You spike, Stryker said coldly. It is worth $4 million. To be worth more when the shopping center is built. What do you want? Larry asked. His voice was hoarse. I've told you what I want. My partner and I plan to open a business in this town. We want to live in the Marston house. Well, what sort of business? Murder Incorporated? Straker smiled coldly. A perfectly ordinary furniture business, I am afraid, with a line of rather special antiques for collectors. My partner is something of an expert in that field. Shit, Larry said crudely. The Marston house you could have for $8.5 grand. The shop for 16. Your partner must know that, and you both must know that this place can't support a fancy furniture and antique place. My partner is extremely knowledgeable on any subject in which he becomes interested, Straker said. He knows that your town is on a highway which serves tourists and summer residents. There are the people with whom we expect to do the bulk of our business. However, there is no accord to you. Do you find the papers in order? Larry tapped his desk with the blue folder. They seem to be. But I'm not going to be horse traded no matter what you say you want. No, of course not. Straker's voice was edged with well-bred contempt. You have a lawyer in Boston, I believe, one Francis Walsh. How do you know that? Larry barked. It doesn't matter. Take the papers to him. He will confirm their validity. The land where this shopping center is to be built will be yours on fulfillment of 3 conditions. Ah, Larry said, and looked relieved. Conditions. He leaned back and selected a William pen from the ceramic cigar box on his desk. He scratched a match on shoe leather and puffed. Now we're getting down to the bone. Fire away. Number 1. You will sell me the Marston house and the business establishment for $1. Your client, in the matter of the house, is a land corporation in Bangor. The business establishment now belongs to a Portland bank. I am sure both parties will be agreeable if you make up the difference to the lowest acceptable prices, minus your commission, of course. Where do you get your information? That is not for you to know, Mr. Crockett. Condition 2. You will say nothing of our transaction here today. Nothing. If the question ever comes up, all you know is what I have told you. We are two partners beginning a business aimed at tourists and summer people. This is very important. I don't blab. Nonetheless, I want to impress on you the seriousness of the condition. A time may come, Mr. Crockett, and when you will want to tell someone of the wonderful deal you made on this day. If you do so, I will find out. I will ruin you. Do you understand? You sound like one of those cheap spy movies, Larry said. He sounded unruffled, but underneath felt a nasty tremor of fear. The words, I will ruin you, had come out as flatly as, how are you today? It gave the statement an unpleasant ring of truth. And how in hell did this joker know about Frank Walsh? Not even his wife knew about Frank Walsh. Do you understand me, Mr. Crockett? Yes, Larry, he said. I'm used to playing them close to the vest. Straker offered his thin smile again. Of course, that is why I am doing business with you. The third condition, the house will need certain renovations. That's one way of putting it, Larry said dryly. My partner plans to carry this task out himself, but you will be his agent. From time to time, there will be requests. From time to time, I will require the services of whatever laborers you employ to bring certain things either to the house or to the shop. You will not speak of such services. Do you understand? Yeah, I understand. But you don't come from these parts, do you? Does that have bearing? Straker raised his eyebrows. Sure it does. This isn't Boston or New York. It's going to be just a matter of me keeping my lips buttoned. But people are going to talk. Why, there's an old biddy over on Railroad Street named of Mabel Wirtz, who spends all day with a pair of binoculars. I don't care about the townspeople. My partner doesn't care about the townspeople. The townspeople always talk. They are no different from the magpies on the telephone wires. Soon, they will accept us. Larry shrugged. It's your party. As you say, Straker agreed. You will pay for the services and keep all invoices and bills. You will be reimbursed. Do you agree? Larry was, as he has told Straker, used to playing them close to the vest, and he had a reputation as one of the best poker players in Cumberland County, and although he had maintained his outward calm through all of this, he was on fire inside. The deal this crazy man was offering him was the kind of thing that came along once, if ever. Perhaps the guy's boss was one of those nutty billionaire recluses who... Mr. Crockett, I am waiting. There are two conditions of my own, Larry said. Ah, Straker looked politely interested. He rattled the blue folder. First, these papers have to check out, of course. Second, if you're doing anything illegal up there, I don't know what to know about. I don't want to know about it. By that I mean... But he was interrupted. Straker threw his head back and gave vent to a singularly cold and emotionless laugh. Did I say something funny? Larry asked, without a trace of a smile. Oh, of course not, Mr. Crockett. You must pardon my outburst. I found your comment amusing for reasons of my own. What were you about to add? These renovations. I'm not going to get you anything that would leave my ass out of the wind. If you're fixing up to make moonshine or LSD or explosives for some hippie radical outfit, that's your own outlook. Look out. Hold on. I got the people talking mixed up. Which one is Mr. Crockett? Who's who again? I'm trying to find out. Oh, Larry's the creepy guy. Agreed, Straker said. The smile was gone from his face. Have we a deal? And with an odd feeling of reluctance, Larry had said, if these papers check out, I guess we do at that. Although, it seems like you did all the dealing and I did all the money making. This is Monday, Straker said. Shall I stop by Thursday afternoon? Better make it Friday. So it is well. He stood. Good day, Mr. Crockett. The papers had checked out. Larry Boston's lawyer said the land where the Portland shopping center was to be built had been purchased by an outfit called Continental Land and Realty, which was a dummy company with office space in the Chemical Bank building in New York. There was nothing in Continental's offices but a few empty filing cabinets and a lot of dust. Straker had come back that Friday and Larry signed the necessary title papers. He did so with a strong taste of doubt in the back of his mouth. He had overthrown his personal maxim for the first time. You don't shit where you eat. And although the inducement had been high, he realized that Straker put the ownership papers to the Marston house and Wild Village wash tub into his briefcase, that he had put himself at this man's beck and call. And the same went for his partner, the absent Mr. Barlow. At last, August had passed, and as summer had slipped into fall and then fall into winter, he had begun to feel an indefinable sense of relief. By this spring, he had almost managed to forget the deal he had made to get the papers, which now resided in his Portland safe deposit box. Then things began to happen. That writer, Mears, had come in a week and a half ago, asking if the Marston house was available for rental, and he had given Larry a particular look when he told him it was sold. Yesterday, there had been a long tube in his post office box and a letter from Straker. A note, really. It had been brief. Kindly have the power which you will be receiving mounted in the window of the shop. Oh, that says poster. Have the poster which you will be... R.T. Straker. The poster itself was common enough and more subdued than some. It only said, opening in 1 week. Barlow and Straker. Fine furnishings. Selected antiques. Browsers welcome. He had gone in royal snow to put it right up, and now there was a car up there at the Marston house. He was still looking at it when someone sat at his elbow. Falling asleep, Larry. He jumped and looked around at Parkins Gillespie, who was standing on the corner next to him and lighting on Pall Mall. No, he said, and laughed nervously. Just thinking. Parkins glanced up at the Marston house, where the sun twinkled on chrome and metal in the driveway, then down at the old laundry with its new sign in the window. And you're not the only one, I guess. Always to get new folks in town. You've met 'em, ain't you? One of them. Last year. Mr. Barlow or Mr. Straker? Straker. Seems like a nice enough sort, did he? Hard to tell. Larry said, and found he wanted to lick his lips. He didn't. We only talked business. He seemed okay. Good. That's good. Come on. I'll walk up to the Excellent with you. When they crossed the street, Lawrence Crockett was thinking about deals with the devil. 1 p.m. Suzanne Norton. Suzanne Norton. Who was Suzanne Norton again? That was the cute college girl, right? Oh, that's the college girl's mom. Suzanne Norton stepped into Bab's beauty boutique, smiled at Babs Griffin, Helen Jack's eldest sister, and said, "Thank goodness you could take him on such short notice." "No problem in the middle of the week," Babs said, turning on the fan. "My ain't it close? It'll thunderstorm this week. This afternoon." Suzanne looked at the sky, which was an unblemished blue. "Do you think so?" "Yeah. How do you want it, hon?" "Natural," Suzanne said, thinking of Ben Mears. Like I hadn't even been near this place." "Hon," Babs said, closing in on her with a sigh. "That's what they all say." The sigh wafted the odor of juicy fruit gum, and Babs asked Susan if she had seen that some folks were opening up a new furniture store in the old village washtub. Expensive stuff by the look of it, but wouldn't it be nice if they had a nice little hurricane lamp to match the one she had in her apartment? And getting away from home and living in town was the smartest move she'd ever made. And hadn't it been nice? Hadn't it been a nice summer? It seemed a shame to ever had it to end. 3 p.m. I think the daughter has a date today at 8 p.m. Right? I don't remember. I think it's at 8 p.m. But it's 3 p.m. now. It's cool how we're going. How we started at literally 3, 4 in the morning. I wonder how that kid's doing. You remember the kid? He woke up at 4 in the morning. He hates the world. What was his name? Let's find out. His name was... It's not Richie, was it? Purrington. Hal and Jack. Those were my favorite characters so far in the book. I really like Hal and Jack. They seem to be unhinged and sick of the world. Where were we? 3 p.m. Bonnie Sawyer was lying on the big double bed in her house on the deep cut road. It was a regular house, no shanty trailer, and it had a foundation and a cellar. Her husband, Reg, made good money as a car mechanic at Jim Smith's Pontiac in Buxton. She was naked except for a pair of filmy blue panties, and she looked impatiently over at the clock on the nightstand. 3:02. Where was he? Almost as if the thought had summoned him. The bedroom door opened the tiniest bit, and Corey Bryant peered through. "Is it okay?" he whispered. Corey was only 22, had been working for the phone company 2 years, and this affair with a married woman, especially a knockout like Bonnie Sawyer, who had been Miss Cumberland County of 1973, left him feeling weak and nervous and horny. Bonnie smiled at him with her lovely capped teeth. "If it wasn't honey," she said, "you'd have a hole in you, big enough to watch TV through." He came tiptoeing in, his utility lineman's big enough to watch TV through. He came tiptoeing in, his utility lineman's ridiculous. Bonnie giggled and opened her arms. "I really like you, Corey. You're cute." Corey's eyes happened on the dark shadow beneath the taut blue nylon and began to feel more horny than nervous. He forgot about tiptoeing and came to her, and as they joined, a cicada began to buzz somewhere in the woods. 4 p.m. Ben Mears pushed away from his desk, the afternoon's writing done. He had foregone his walk in the park so he could go to dinner at the Norstons that night with a clear conscience, and had written for most of the day without a break. He stood up and stretched, listening to the bones in his spine crackle. His torso was wet with sweat. He went to the cupboard at the head of the bed, pulled out a fresh towel, and went down to the bathroom to shower before everyone else got home from work and clogged the place. He hung the towel over his shoulder, turned back to the door, and then went to the window, where something had caught his eye. Nothing in town. It was drowsing away the late afternoon under a sky that peculiar shade of deep blue that graces New England on fine late summer days. He could look across the 2-story buildings on Jointer Avenue, could see their flat, asphalted roofs, and across the park where the children now home from school lazed or biked or squabbled, and out to the northwest section of town where Brock Street disappeared behind the shoulder of that first wooded hill. His eyes traveled naturally up to the break in the woods where the Burns Road and the Brooks Road intersected in a T, and on up to where the Marston house sat overlooking the town. From there, here it was a perfect miniature, diminished to the size of a child's dollhouse, and he liked it that way. From here, the Marston house was a size that could be coped with. You could hold up your hand and blot it out with your palm. And there was a car in the driveway. He stood with the towel over his shoulder, looking out at it, not moving, feeling a crawl of terror in his belly that he did not try to analyze. 2 of the fallen shutters had been replaced. 2, giving the house a creative blind look that it had not possessed before. His lips moved silently, as if words no one, even himself, could understand. It's 5 p.m. now. Matthew Burke left the high school carrying his briefcase in his left hand and crossed the empty parking lot to where his old Chevy Biscayne sat, still on last year's snow tires. He was 63, 2 years from mandatory retirement and still carrying a full load of English classes and extracurricular activities. Fall's activity was a school play, and he had just finished reading for a 3-act farce called Charlie's Problem. He had gotten the usual glut of utter impossibles, perhaps a dozen usable warm bodies who would at least memorize their lines and then deliver them in a deathly trembling monotone, and 3 kids who showed flair. He would cast them on Friday and began blocking next week. They would pool together between then and October 30th, which was the play date. It was Matt's theory that a high school play should be like a bowl of Campbell's alphabet soup, tasteless but not actively offensive. The relatives would come and love it. The theater critic from the Cumberland Ledger would come and go into polysyllabic ecstasies, as he was paid to do over any local play. The female lead, Ruthie Crockett this year, probably would fall in love with some other cast member and quite possibly lose her virginity after the cast party. And then he would pick up the threads of the debate club. At 63, Matt Burke still enjoyed teaching. He was a lousy disciplinarian, thus forfeiting any chance he might once have had to step up to administration. He was a little too dreamy-eyed to ever serve effectively as an assistant principal, but his lack of discipline had never held him back. He had read the sonnets of Shakespeare in cold, pipe-clanking classrooms full of flying airplanes and spitballs, had sat down upon tacks and thrown them absently as he told the class to turn to page 467 in their grammars, had opened drawers to get composition paper only to discover crickets, frogs, and once a 7-foot black snake. He had ranged across the length and breadth of the English language like a solitary and oddly complacent ancient mariner. Steinbeck, period 1. Chaucer, period 2, and the topic sentence, period 3. And the function of the gerund, gerund? Just before lunch. His fingers were permanently yellowed with chalk dust rather than nicotine, but it was still the residue of an addicting substance. Children did not revere or love him. He was not a Mr. Chips languishing away in a rustic corner of America and waiting for Ross Hunter to discover him. And a few learned from him that dedication, however eccentric or humble, can be a noteworthy thing. He liked his work. Now he got into his car, pumped the accelerator too much and flooded it, waited and started it again. He turned the radio to a Portland rock and roll station and jacked the volume almost to the speaker's distortion point. He thought rock and roll was fine music. He backed out of his parking lot, stalled, and started the car up again. He had a small house out on the Taggart Stream Road and had very few callers. He had never been married, had no family except for a brother in Texas who worked for an oil company and never wrote. He did not really miss the attachments. He was a solitary man, but solitude had in no way twisted him. He paused at the blinking light at the intersection of Jointer Avenue and Brock Street, then turned toward home. The shadows were long now. and the daylight had taken on a curiosity beautiful warmth. Curiously beautiful warmth. Flat and golden like something from a French Impressionist painting. He glanced over to his left, saw the Marston house, and glanced again. The shutters, he said aloud, against the driving beat from the radio. Those shutters are back up. He glanced in the rearview mirror and saw that there was a car parked in the driveway. He had been teaching in Salem's lot since '52, and he had never seen a car parked in that driveway. Is someone living up there? He asked. Wait. He asked no one in particular and drove on. Interesting. I have to do some verification tests. I'm gonna take a little couple minute break. Mundas. How many water bottles can you drink in a day? This is my third one. I can drink like 3 a day. I don't drink a lot. Let's continue reading Salem's Lot. 6 p.m. We got 2 more hours until the date happens. I wonder if we're gonna have a date. Like, if it's gonna go well. Is he gonna turn into a vampire? I want to keep reading. I just want to, like, meet my first vampire. And I haven't met him yet. Is this even a vampire story? I don't even know. We're like 108 pages in. What the fuck? Am I engaged? I guess. There's nothing wrong with the book. 100 pages. It's a 600-page book, so I don't know. It's still building up. I like the intrigue behind the Marston house. That's very fun. 6 p.m. Suzanne's father, Bill Norton, the lot's first selectman, was surprised to find that he liked Ben Mears. Liked him quite a lot. Bill was a big, tough man with a black hair, built like a truck, and not fat, even after 50. He had left high school for the Navy in the 11th grade when his father's permission, and he had clawed his way up from there, picking up his diploma at the age of 24 on a high school equivalency test taken almost as an afterthought. He was not a blind, boldish, anti-intellectual, as some plain working men become when they are denied the level of learning that they may have been capable of, either through fate or their own thing. But he had no patience with art farts, as he termed some of the doe-eyed, long-haired boys Suzanne had brought home from school. He didn't mind their hair or their dress. What bothered him was none of them seemed serious-minded. He didn't share his wife's liking for Floyd Tibbets, the boy that Susie had been going around with the most since she graduated, but he didn't actively dislike him either. Floyd had a pretty good job at the executive level in the foul-mouthed Grants, and Bill Norton considered him to be moderately serious-minded. And he was a hometown boy, but so was this Mears, in a manner of speaking. Now, you leave him alone about that art fart business, Susan said, rising at the sound of the doorbell. She was wearing a light green summer dress, her new casual hairdo pulled back and tied loosely with a hank of oversized green yarn. Bill laughed. I got to call him as I see him, Susie, darling. I won't embarrass you. Never do I? She gave him a pensive, nervous smile and went to open the door. Okay. So the date was at 6 p.m.? I thought the date was at 8 p.m. Was it really 6? Damn. Isn't she dating his friend right now? I think there's a love triangle going on. Yeah, it was 6 p.m. I didn't even know. If there's a love triangle going on, that's so gay. She gave him a pensive, nervous smile and went to open the door. Let's see how it goes. The man who came back in with her was lanky and agile looking, with finely drawn features and a thick, almost greasy shock of black hair, and looked freshly washed despite its natural oiliness. He was dressed in a way that impressed Bill favorably. Plain blue jeans, very new, and a white shirt rolled to the elbows. Ben, this is my dad and my mom. Bill and Ann Norton. Mom, Dad, Ben Mears. Hello, nice to meet you. He smiled at Miss Norton with a touch of reserve, and she said, Hello, Mr. Mears. This is the first time we've seen a real live author up close. Susan has been awfully excited. Don't worry, I don't quote from my own works, he smiled again. Hello, Bill said and heaved himself up of his chair. He had worked himself up to the union position by now. He now held on Portland docks, and his grip was hard and strong. But Mears' hand did not crimp and jellyfish like that of your ordinary garden variety art fart, and Bill was pleased. He imposed his second testing criterion. Like a beer? Got some on ice out yonder. He gestured toward the back patio, which he had built himself. Art farts invariably said so. Most of them were potheads, and couldn't waste their valuable consciousness juicing Moondust! I don't know. Where is my cat? Moondust. I have the balcony open. Oh shit! And I like her to go outside, but I always get scared if she jumps over. All right, but she's smart, right? She's a cat. I mean, it's not like she's a baby. Oh. He gestured toward the back patio, which he had built himself. Our force invariably said no. Most of them were potheads and couldn't waste their valuable consciousness juicing. Man, I'd love a beer, Ben said, and the smile became a grin. 2 or 3 even. Bill's laughter boomed out. Okay, you're my man. Come on. At the sound of his laughter, and all communication seemed to pass between the two women, who bore a strong resemblance to each other. Ann Norton's brow contracted while Susan smoothed out. A load of worry seemed to have been transferred across the room by telepathy. Ben followed Bill out onto the veranda. An ice chest set on a stool in the corner, stuffed with ring-tab cans of Pabst. Bill pulled a can out on the cooler and tossed it to Ben, who caught it in one hand but lightly so it wouldn't fizz. Nice out here, Ben said, looking toward the barbecue in the backyard. It was a low business-like construction of bricks, and a shimmer of heat hung over it. Built it myself, Bill said. Better be nice. Ben drank deeply and then belched, another sign in his favor. Susie thinks you're quite the fella, Norton said. She's a nice girl. Good practical girl, Norton added, and belched reflectively. She says, you've written 3 books. Published them too. Yes, that's so. They do well? The first did, Ben said, and said no more. Bill Norton nodded slightly, in approval of a man who had enough marbles to keep his dollars and cents business to himself. You'd like to lend a hand with some burgers and hot dogs? Sure. Uh, you got to cut the hot dogs to let the squidges out of them. You know about that? Yeah. He made diagonal slashes in the air with his right index finger, grinning slightly as he did so. The small slashes in natural casing franks keep them from blistering. You come from this neck of the woods, all right, Bill Norris said. Goddamn well told. Take that bag of briquettes over there and then I'll get the meat. Bring your beer. You couldn't part me from it. Bill hesitated on the verge of going in and cocked an eyebrow at Ben Mears. You a serious-minded fella? He asked. Ben smiled and a trifle grimly. That I am, he said. That's good, he said and went inside. Babs Griffin's prediction of rain was a million miles wrong, and the backyard dinner went well. A light breeze sprang up, combining with the eddies of hickory smoke from the barbecue to keep the worst of the late season mosquitoes away. Moon dust. The woman cleared away the paper plates and condiments, then came back to get a drink, a beer each, and laugh as Bill, an old hand at playing the tricky wind currents, trimmed Ben 21-6 at badminton. Ben declined a rematch with real regret, pointing at his watch. I got a book on the fire, he said. I owe another 6 pages. If I get drunk, I won't even be able to read what I wrote tomorrow morning. Susan saw him to the front gate. He had walked up from town. Bill nodded to himself as he damped the fire. He had said he was serious-minded, and Bill was ready to take him on at his word. He had not come with a big case on to impress anyone, but any man who worked after dinner was out to make his mark on somebody's tree, probably in big letters. Ann Norton, however, never quite unthawed. 7 p.m. Floyd Tibbetts pulled into the crushed stone parking lot at Dell's about 10 minutes after Delbert Markey, owner and bartender, had turned on his new pink sign out front. The sign said Dell's in letters 3 feet high, and the apostrophe was a highball glass. Outside, the sunlight had been lurched from the sky by gathering purple twilight, and soon ground mist would begin to form in the low-lying pockets of land. The night's regulars would begin to show up in another hour or so. Hi, Floyd, Dell said, pulling a Michelob out of the cooler. Good day? Fair, Floyd said. That beer looks good. He was a tall man with a well-trimmed sandy beard, now dressed in double-knit slacks and a casual sports jacket, his Grant's working uniform. He was second in charge of credit and liked his work in the absent kind of way that can cross the line into boredom almost overnight. He felt himself to be drifting, but the sensation was not actively unpleasant. And there was Suze, a fine girl. She was going to come around before much longer, and then he supposed he would have to make something of himself. He dropped a dollar bill on the bar, poured beer down the side of his glass, downed it thirstily, and refilled. The bar's only other patron at present was a young fellow in phone company overalls. The Bryant kid, Floyd thought. He was drinking beer at the table and listening to a moody love song on the juke. So what's new in town? Floyd asked, knowing the answer already. Nothing new, not really. Someone might have showed up drunk at the high school, but he couldn't think of something else to say. Well, somebody killed your uncle's dog. That's new. Floyd paused with his glass halfway to his mouth. Bro, he killed him. What? Uncle Wynn's dog, Doc? That's right. Hit him with a car? Not so, you'd notice. Mike Ryerson found him. He was out to Harmony Hill to mow the grass, and Doc was hanging off those spikes atop the cemetery gate, ripped wide open. Son of a bitch, Floyd said, astounded. Dell nodded gravely. He pleased with the impression he had made. He knew something else that was a fairly hot item in town this evening. That Floyd's girl had been seen with that writer who was staying at Eva's, but he let Floyd that out for himself. He let Floyd find that out for himself. That's crazy. I was right. So she's cheating on both of them. That's crazy. I would say, drop that bitch. Drop that bitch. Where was I? Ryerson, bring the cops into Parkins Gillespie, he told Floyd. He was of the mind that maybe the dog was dead and a bunch of kids hung it up for a joke. Gillespie doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground. Maybe not. I'll tell you what I think. Dell leaned forward on his thick forearms. I think it's kids, all right. Hell, I know that. But it might be a smidge more serious than just a joke. Here, look at this. He reached under the bar and slapped a newspaper down to it, turned it into an inside page. Floyd picked it up. The headline read, Satan worshippers desecrate Florida church. He skimmed through it. Apparently a bunch of kids had broken into a Catholic church in Clewiston, Florida. Sometime after midnight had held some sort of unholy rites. There, the altar had been deserted. Obscene words had been scrawled on the pews, the confessionals and the holy font, and splatters of blood had been found on steps leading to the nave. Laboratory analysis had confirmed that although some of the blood was animal, goat's blood was suggested. Most of it was human. The Clewiston police chief admitted there was no immediate leads. Floyd put the paper down. Devil worshippers in the lot? Come on, Dell. You've been into the cook's pot. The kids are going crazy, Dell says stubbornly. You see if that ain't it. You see if that ain't it. Next thing you know, they'll be doing human sacrifices in Griffin's pasture. Want a refill on that? No thanks, Floyd said, sliding off his stool. I think I'll go out and see how Uncle Wynn's getting along. He loved that dog. Give him my best, Dell said, stowing his paper back under the bar. Exhibit A for later in the evening. Awful sorry to hear about that. Floyd paused halfway to the door and spoke, seemingly into the air. Hung him up on the spikes, did they? By Christ, I'd like to get a hold of one of those kids who did that. Devil worshippers, Dell said. Wouldn't surprise me a bit. I don't know what's got it into people these days. Floyd left. The Bryan kid put another dime in the juke. And Corliss began to sing Bury the Bottle with Me. 7:30 p.m. You be home early, Marjorie Glick said to her eldest son, Danny. School tomorrow. I want your brother in bed by 9:15. Danny shuffled his feet. I don't see why I have to take him at all. You don't, Marjorie said with dangerous pleasantness. You can always stay home. She turned back to the counter where she was freshening fish, and Ralphie stuck out his tongue. Danny made a fist and took it, but his putrid little brother only smiled. Ralphie? Why does that name sound so familiar? Huh. Don't know why. We'll be back, he muttered and turned to leave the kitchen. Ralphie in tow. By 9. Okay. In the living room, Tony Glick was sitting in front of the TV with his feet up watching the Red Sox and the Yankees. Where are you going, boys? Over to that new kid, Danny said. Mark Petrie. Yeah, Ralphie said. We're gonna look at his electric trains. Wait. Wasn't Ralphie the bully? This is crazy. They're gonna go beat his ass? Or are they gonna kill him? I don't know. Danny cast a baleful eye on his brother, but their father noticed neither the pause nor the emphasis. Doug Griffin had just struck out. Be home early, he said absently. Outside afterlight still lingered in the sky, although sunset had passed. As they crossed the backyard, Danny said, I ought to beat that stuff out of you, punko. I'll tell Ralphie. I'll tell. Ralphie said, smudgely. I'll tell why you really wanted to go. You creep, Danny said hopelessly. At the back of the mowed yard, a beaten path led down to the slope of the woods. The Glick house was on the Rock Street. Mark Petrie's on South Jointer Avenue. The path was a shortcut that shaved considerable time if you were 12 and 9 years old and willing to pick your way across the Crockett Brook stepping stones. Number 18. Pine needles and twigs crackled under their feet. Somewhere in the woods, a whippoorwill sang and crickets chirped all around them. Danny had made the mistake of telling his brother that Mark Petrie had the entire set of Aurora plastic monsters. Wolfman, Mummy, Dracula, Frankenstein, the mad doctor, and even the Chamber of Horrors. Their mother thought all that stuff was bad news, rotted your brains or something, and Danny's brother had immediately turned blackmailer. He was putrid, all right. You're putrid, you know that, Danny said. I know, Ralphie said proudly. What's putrid? It's when you get green and squishy, like boogers. Get bent, Ralphie said. They were going down the bank of Crockett Brook, which gurgled leisurely over a gravel bed, holding a faint pearliness on its surface. 2 miles east, it joined Taggart Stream, which in turn joined in Royal River. Danny started across the stepping stones, squinting in the gathering gloom to see his footing. I'm gonna push ya, Ralphie cried gleefully, building him. Look out, Danny. I'm gonna push ya. You push me and I'll push you in the quicksand, ring meat, Danny said. They reached the other bank. There ain't no quicksand around here. Ralphie scowled, moving closer to his brother, nevertheless. Yeah, Danny said ominously. A kid got killed in the quicksand just a few years ago. I heard those old dudes that hang around the store talking about it. Really? Ralphie asked. His eyes were wide. Yeah, Danny said. He went down screaming and hollering, and his mouth filled up with quicksand, and that was it. Rah! Come on, Ralphie said uneasily. It was close to full dark now, and the woods were full of moving shadows. Let's get out of here. They started up the other bank, slipping a little in the pine needles. The boy Danny had heard discussed in the store was a 10-year-old named Jerry Kingfield. He might have gone down in the quicksand screaming and hollering, but if he had, no one heard him. He had simply disappeared in the marshes 6 years ago while fishing. Some people thought quicksand, others held that a sex pervert had killed him. There were preverts. A sex prevert had killed him. There were preverts everywhere. Weird. I don't know. I don't think that's how you spell it. Is it the addition? They no, cause they say bitch and fucking here. Oh, they say fuck. Mm. Only two. I don't know. They started up the other bank, slipping a little in the pine needles. The boy Danny had heard discussed in the store was a 10-year-old named Jerry Kingfield. He might have gone down in the quicksand screaming and hollering, but if he had, no one had heard him. He had simply disappeared in the marshes 6 years ago while fishing. Some people thought quicksand, others held that a Cirque's prevert had killed him. There was preverts everywhere. They say his ghost still haunts these woods, Danny said solemnly, neglecting to tell his little brother that the marshes were 3 miles south. Don't, Danny, Rafi said uneasily. Not in the dark. The woods creaked secretively around them. The whippoorwill had ceased his cry. A branch snapped somewhere behind them almost stealthily. The daylight was nearly gone from the sky. Every now and then, Danny went on eerily. When some ring-meat little kid comes out after dark, it comes flapping out of the trees. The face all putrid and covered with quicksand. Danny, come on. His little brother's voice held real pleading, and Danny stopped. He had almost scared himself. The trees were dark, bulking presences all around them, moving slowly in the night breeze, rubbing together, creaking in their joints. Another branch snapped off to their left. Danny suddenly wished they had gone by the road. Another branch snapped. Danny, I'm scared, Ralphie whispered. Don't be stupid, Danny said. Come on. They started to walk again. Their feet crackled in the pine needles. Danny told himself that he didn't hear any branches snapping. He didn't hear anything except them. Blood thudded in his temples. His hands were cold. Count steps, he told himself. We'll be at the Jointer Avenue in about 200 steps. And when we come back, we'll go by the road, so ring me. Won't be scared. In just a minute, he'll see the street lights and feel stupid, but it will be good to feel stupid. So count steps. 1, 2, 3. Ralphie shrieked. I see it! I see the ghost! I see it! Terror like hot iron leaped into Danny's chest. Wires seemed to have run about his legs. He would have turned and run, but Ralphie was clutching him. Where? He whispered, forgetting that he had invented the ghost. Where? He peered into the woods, half afraid of what he might see, and saw only blackness. It's gone now. But I saw him. Its eyes. Eyes. I saw eyes. Oh, Danny. He was blubbering. There ain't no ghost, you fool. Come on. Danny held his brother's hand, and they began to walk. His legs felt as if they were made up of 10,000 pencil erasers. His knees were trembling. Ralphie was crowding against him, almost forcing him off the path. It's watching us, Ralphie whispered. Listen, I'm not gonna... No, Danny, really. Can't you feel it? Danny stopped. And in the way of children, he did feel something, and knew they were no longer alone. A great hush had fallen over the woods, but it was a malefic hush. Shadows urged by the wind twisted languorously around them, and Danny smelled something savage. But not with his nose. There were no ghosts, but there were preverts. They stopped in black cars and offered you candy, or hung around on street corners, or they followed you into the woods. And then they... Run, he said harshly. But Ralphie trembled beside him in a paralysis of fear. His grip on Danny's hand was as tight as bawling wire. His eyes stared into the woods and then began to widen. Danny? A branch snapped. Danny turned and looked where his brother was looking. The darkness enfolded them. Interesting. That was some good stuff, to be honest. That might have been the best chapter. Passage. I don't know. Okay, let's finish it. Oh, this is the end of the chapter 3, actually. Alright, passage 19, 9 p.m. Mabel Wirtz was a hugely fat woman, 74 on her last birthday, and her legs had become less and less reliable. She was a repository of town history and town gossip, and her memory stretched back over 5 decades of necrology, adultery, thievery, and insanity. She was a gossip, but not a deliberately cruel one, although those whose stories she had sped on their back fence way might tend to disagree. She simply lived in and for the town. In a way, she was the town, a fat widow who now went out very little and who spent most of her time by her window, dressed in a tent-like silk camisole, her yellowish ivory hair done up in a coronet of thick braided cables, with the telephone on her right hand and her high-powered Japanese binoculars on the left. The combination of the two, plus the time to use them fully, made her a benevolent spider, sitting in the center of communications web that stretched from the Bend to East Salem. She had been watching the Marston house for want of something better to watch when the shutters to the left of the porch were open, letting out a golden square of light that was definitely not the steady glow of electricity. She had gotten just a tantalizing glimpse of what might have been a man's head and shoulders, silhouetted against the light. It gave her a queer thrill. There had been no more movement from the house. She thought, now what kind of people is it that only opens up when a body can't catch a decent glimpse of them? She put the glasses down and carefully picked up the telephone. Two voices. She quickly identified them as Harriet Durham and Glynis Mayberry. Were talking about the Ryerson boy finding Irwin Purrington's dog. She sat quietly, breathing through her mouth so as to give no sign of her presence on the line. Passage 20, 11:59 p.m. What happened at 8 p.m.? Because I thought that was the date. Nothing. They skipped it. The day trembled on the edge of extinction. What happened to the boys? What happened to the boys? The day trembled on the edge of extinction. The houses slept in darkness. Downtown, night lights in the hardware store and the four-man funeral home and the excellent cafe threw mild electric light onto the pavement. Some lay awake. George Boyer, who had just gotten home from the 3 to 11 shift at the Gates Mill, Win Purrington, sitting and playing solitaire and unable to sleep for thinking of his doc, whose passing had affected him much more deeply than that of his wife. But most slept the sleep of the just and the hard-working. In Harmony Hill Cemetery, a dark figure stood meditatively inside the gate, waiting for the turn of time. When he spoke, the voices were soft and cultured. In Harmony Hill Cemetery, a dark figure stood meditatively inside the gate, waiting for the turn of time. When he spoke, the voice was soft and cultured. Oh, my father, favor me now. Lord of Flies. Favor me now. Now I bring you spoiled meat and reeking flesh. I have made sacrifice for your favor. With my left hand I bring it. Make a sign for me on this ground, consecrated in your name. I'll wait for a sign to begin your work. What if the spoiled meat was probably either the dogs, or maybe they killed the boys. He killed the boys and took their heart or something. Make a sign for me on this ground, consecrated in your name. I wait for a sign to begin your work. The voice died away. A wind had sprung up, gentle, bringing with it the sigh and whisper of leafy branches and grasses and a whiff of carrion from the dump up the road. There was no sound that brought on the breeze. The figure stood silent and thoughtful for a time. Then it stooped and stood with the figure of a child in his arms. I'll bring you this. It became unspeakable. He must have taken the smaller one. Right? Oh my god. That's crazy.